LiberalViewer presents.
So, welcome to the December 20th edition of LiberalViewer Monday Media Mixup. Thanks for joining me. I'll be using the dozen best, most newsworthy clips I picked out from the Sunday morning news analysis shows from the big five corporate outlets of ABC, NBC, CBS, CNN, and Fox News, the so-called corporate media here in the United States, for which would be an informative, educational media criticism and political commentary show for you all today. I'm going to do something a little different because of the breaking news yesterday that Senator Joe Manchin was going to be a no vote on the Build Back Better bill that's pretty much at the center of Biden's domestic agenda. So that's why my title topic this week is Senator Joe Manchin the Grinch who stole President Joe Biden's agenda? So I'm going to cover the clips on that topic before the news summaries, which are mostly on COVID and Omicron. And then as part of my Manchin the Grinch coverage, I will also answer this comment I got from Harvey Cotton a few days ago, kind of a prescient comment, because this was before Joe Manchin was a firm no. This was just when they were delaying Build Back Better to next year. He commented on my video, infrastructure deal delayed, but progressives are winning, ? With, yeah, that analysis did not age well. And so I will take on that comment a little bit later. But first I want to start with my political comedy, which is on one of the early reactions to Senator Joe Manchin being a firm no on this Build Back Better bill that all the other Democrats apparently were willing to vote for. Well, that is a question that maybe I'll address later. But this is Representative Cori Bush from a district that I lived in briefly, or I lived in St. Louis for about 5 years. She's sort of a Black Lives Matter activist turned member of Congress. And she was on the Sunday show with Jonathan Capehart yesterday. And he asked, the question, is it really dead? Is Build Back Better really dead? Which may or may not be true. She doesn't really answer that, but she does have sort of a comedic answer that I thought I would start the show with before I actually show you the full clip of what Joe Manchin said that she's reacting to. And I'm going to show you like almost 6 minutes of his interview on Fox News Sunday with Bret Baier, where he says he's a firm no. But anyway, here's Cori Bush's reaction that I'll discuss with you a little more after we watch it together over here.
More convenient.
Congresswoman, we've got 30 seconds left. Senator Padilla of California was on at the top of the hour. He, like you, disappointed, but he also said this isn't over, that this isn't dead yet. How much hope do you have that, at least in the first 3 months of 2022, that Build Back Better can be negotiated and passed and become law?
When I leave this interview, I'm going to the intrawebs, and I'm going to be looking for the phone number to the Ghost of Christmas, past, present, and future, or the email address to see if they can go and see about Scrooge on Christmas Eve. I'm sorry, not Scrooge, Senator Manchin.
I know who you're talking about. Congresswoman Cori Bush of Missouri, thank you very, very much for coming to the Sunday show.
And getting called Scrooge was kind of one of the lighter comments that Senator Joe Manchin got from a lot of other Democrats, especially progressives. Even the White House press secretary, Jen Psaki, put out this fairly scathing comment saying that it was like a reversal and it was a violation of promise. And if you've been following this all along, that is when they passed the Build Back Better bill, there was this promise not from Manchin but from Biden that he could bring along the 50 votes on Build Back Better, which now seem to have evaporated. And while I guess Harvey Cotton is right that I did make a video several months back saying before the infrastructure deal was made, saying that progressives were winning, and they did seem to be winning at that point, although you notice there is a question mark at the end of that title, which I guess saves me a little bit. And I don't think I actually predicted that the progressives were going to win. And I'm not sure that next year some parts of Build Back Better might not come back. But things do look bad right now. But in my defense, I also want to point out that in March of this year, when I was still doing my Sunday live streams, I also made a video called "Joe Manchin Rules America?" ? That was my Sunday live clip roundup number 411. And I actually put a link down in the video description if you want to go watch that. And so, I don't know, does that kind of counteract the one that Harvey Cotton was asking me about? I mean, a lot of times my video titles are a summary of the conventional wisdom that you're going to see in the clips, and not even so much my analysis. But I actually did think that I tend to be more optimistic about politics than I really should be. I'm not optimistic about a lot of things, but I can't understand why my positions that are so reasonable and so good for the country and for the people as a whole, why doesn't everyone agree with them? Doesn't even make sense. But maybe you can let me know down in the comment section why you think not everybody agrees with me. And speaking of people who don't agree with me, I'm now going to show you the full, almost 6-minute. This isn't the entire interview that Bret Baier did with Joe Manchin, and I'm even going to show you a little later another part of his cross-examination of Joe Manchin. But apparently, a half hour before Joe Manchin went on Fox News, he sent a message to the White House and Democratic leaders that he was going to do this, and the White House tried to get a hold of him, and he didn't answer the call, and I guess Bret Baier knew what was coming. He kind of gives him a softball setup, but he doesn't really cross-examine him on. I mean, the reasons for not voting for this bill don't even really make sense. The national security, or not that, the geopolitical situation and COVID coming back and inflation. I mean, those are all reasons why the bill needs to be passed more than not passed. But anyway, I will talk about all of that a little more with you after I let you see the full context of Joe Manchin becoming the Grinch who stole Joe Biden's domestic agenda or whatever. And this is important because, and then after I show this, I'm going to show you Bernie Sanders' reaction to what Joe Manchin did yesterday. And anyway, I'll talk about all of that a little more after you get the full clip in context over here.
Senator, you're at the center of this negotiation with the president over his social spending and tax bill, the Build Back Better bill that is not coming up in the Senate before the new year, in part largely because of your reservations. Without you, the leadership doesn't have the votes it needs. So today, right now, what's the state of play?
Well, Brett, this is a mammoth piece of legislation, and I had my reservations from the beginning when I heard about it 5.5 months ago, and I've been working diligently every day and every minute of every day. I've been working on this, meeting with, whether it be the President Biden, whether it be Majority Leader Schumer and his staff, whether it would be with Nancy Pelosi, all of my colleagues, I mean, from all different spectrums of the political spectrum, if you will, from the right to the left. I've done everything humanly possible. And my concerns I had, and I still have these concerns, and where I'm at right now, the inflation that I was concerned about, it's not transitory, it's real, it's harming every West Virginian. It's making it almost difficult for them to continue to go to their jobs, the cost of gasoline, the cost of groceries, the cost of utility bills, all of these things are hitting in every aspect of their life. And you start looking at, then you have the debt that we're carrying at $29 trillion. You have also the geopolitical unrest that we have. You have the COVID variant, and that is wreaking havoc again. People are concerned. I've been with my family. I know everyone's concerned. So when you have these things coming at you the way they are right now, I've always said this, Brett, if I can't go home and explain it to the people of West Virginia, I can't vote for it. And I cannot vote to continue with this piece of legislation. I just can't. I've tried everything humanly possible. I can't get there.
You're done. This is a no.
This is a no on this legislation. I have tried everything I know to do. And the president has worked diligently. He's been wonderful to work with. He knows I've had concerns and the problems I've had. And, the thing that we should all be is directing our attention towards the variant, the COVID that we have coming back at us in so many different aspects and different ways. It's affecting our lives again. We have inflation that basically could really harm a lot of Americans, and especially those who are most needy and having a hard time struggling right now. So I think that's where our attention needs to be directed towards immediately. And this has been going on for 5.5 months.
You're getting all the focus, Senator, but are there other Democratic senators who are concerned about this bill like you are? Have you talked to them?
I'm not going to speak for any of my senators. I respect. They know they know the difficulties that I've been having with this. I've been very concerned about this. When I first got to the Senate, back in 2011, I was having a meeting on armed services. And at that time, Admiral Mike Mullen was the chief of the head of the Joint Chiefs of Staff. And I'll never forget, in this hearing, he was asked the question, what's the greatest threat the United States of America faces? And I'm thinking I'm going to hear something in basically with military threats we might have around the world. Without blinking an eye, he said, the debt of our nation is the greatest threat. Now, the debt was $14 trillion then, Brett. It's $29 trillion now. Inflation is real. It's not going away anytime soon. We don't know when the end will come. There's a lot of people hurting right now. This COVID, we're fighting on a daily basis, and it's coming at different angles at us, if you will. These are serious things. There's a lot of good, but that bill is a mammoth piece of legislation, a mammoth piece. And when it's done even through regular order, it would be a tremendous, huge undertaking.
So Democrats obviously are frustrated in your caucus, progressives especially, but they point to what they've been doing since the first part of this. The Senate, the conventional wisdom is the longer it goes, it was going to be trimmed down. But the House passed bill was at $2.2 trillion, down from Bernie Sanders' $6 trillion, the initial pitch, which was lowered to $3.5 trillion, now comes in just under $2 trillion. So your number at the beginning was 1.7. Where is the disconnect that you are now a no? You can't get to yes? Well, if you're a Democrat, you're pushing you?
Yeah. Well, Brett, first of all, when this all came about and I went and spoke to the leader, Schumer at that time, and I explained to him where I was and the concerns I had. And at 1.5 trillion is where I thought the most that we could do if we just did it and basically took care of the things that we thought were the highest priorities. As you recall, Bernie started at 6 trillion. I think he was sincere what he thinks needs to be done. And the changes he would like to make are social changes. Then they went to 3.5 trillion. That went down to 2.2 from the House side, and even at 1.75. The thing that never changed, Brett, was basically the same amount of things that they're trying to accomplish by just changing, if you will, the amount of time that we can depend on them. So if you're going to do something and do it, pick what our priorities are, like most people do in their families or their businesses, and you fund them for 10 years, and you make sure they deliver the services for 10 years. It's hard to deliver service for 1 year or 3 years or 5 years, and how are we going to continue them? Unless it's going to put a burden or unless we have to go back and make adjustments. But we should be upfront and pick our priorities. That's the difference. So it hasn't shrunk in the desire. The intent is always there. And what we need to do is get our financial house in order, but be able to pay for what we do and do what we pay for.
So there was one weird talking point in there where he says, we have to do it like families do with their households, where, you decide what you can afford and then you fund it for 10 years. Like, what households do that? I don't think most American households, when they figure out, what they want to do, then they fund it for 10 years. And if you can't fund it for 10 years, then you don't do it. Or, I don't know, if you can't find... Anyway, that was one talking point in there that I thought was a little weird, but the other... I have a couple other criticisms here, having watched the clip with you. I didn't heavily pre-criticize it, but Bret Baier, I was saying that I didn't like his cross-examination of the kind of bogus reasons, inflation, COVID, geopolitics, whatever. He never said, what changed that made you come to Fox News today to do this? And I mean, the reasons themselves are kind of bogus, but they're not. There's nothing that just happened. And it's hard to, I don't know exactly why, although I listened to this radio interview that Joe Manchin did today on this West Virginia station. It's a talk line with Hoppy Kercheval. I don't know if that's how you pronounce it, but it's like a 14-minute interview right at the beginning of the. Maybe I should have put a link down in the video description to that. But he talks about having like some negative, like feud going on with some of Biden's staff members, and there was that nasty, or very strong, sharp statement from Jen Psaki yesterday I was talking about. And then what he said today, I don't know exactly if that has something to do with why this just blew up, what the backstory is. I'm sure there'll be more reporting on that. There was also that talking point that Joe Manchin gave about how, years ago, this general said our greatest national security threat is the national debt. Well, I think I saw someone in the live comments pointing out along the way that they just voted for this trillions. Oh, Tom Trask was saying he just voted for 4 times larger defense bill. I think it was 700 billion, 780 billion, and that was just 1 year. So if you were to look at it over 10 years, like they do with Build Back Better, that's like 7.8 trillion or whatever. But nobody talks about how that's inflationary or that's too much spending, or so. Yeah, Tom Trask. Bret Baier never asked about that, even though he's bringing up national security. And if you're bringing up national security, wouldn't you also bring up climate change, which even the Department of Defense recognizes as a significant national security threat, and they're like planning for it. But Build Back Better had a lot of the things that were going to help us prepare and mitigate and stop climate change, or at least stop it before it gets, worse and worse and worse. It's going to get worse. It's going to get worse and worse, but maybe we can stop it before it gets worse and worse and worse, or whatever. Is that where we are at this point? I don't know. But I guess you know what I'm talking about there. So, yeah, that was another one of my criticisms of that interview. It didn't show the entire interview, and like I said, I'm going to show a little snippet later as a response to Senator Bernie Sanders' response, although, of course, Bernie Sanders' interview on CNN State of the Union with Jake Tapper happened after. I never understand exactly what order they record these shows in, because 2 of the shows made comment on what Joe Manchin did, but Meet the Press and Face the Nation, they didn't. I don't know if that was because of the what time they all tape. I guess they don't use tape. And do they use tape? Anyway, now I'm getting off on a weird tangent. But anyway, I want to show you Bernie Sanders, very sharp. Was saying, I showed you Cori Bush earlier referring to Joe Manchin as Scrooge. I referred to him as the Grinch in my title here, but he kind of says it in an indirect way, but I'm pretty sure if you listen to this if you connect the dots, Bernie Sanders is saying that Senator Joe Manchin is corrupt and in the pocket of special interests like the fossil fuel industry. He doesn't say that's. You tell me how close he comes to saying that in the clip I will talk about with you a little more after we watch it together over here.
Welcome back to State of the Union. I'm Jake Tapper. Breaking news this morning. Senator Joe Manchin of West Virginia has just said he is a no on President Biden's cornerstone legislation, Build Back Better. Take a listen.
I cannot vote to continue with this piece of legislation. I just can't. I've tried everything humanly possible. I can't get there.
You're done. This is a no.
This is a no on this legislation. I have tried everything I know to do.
Joining us now exclusively to react, the man managing the legislation, Senate Budget Committee Chairman Bernie Sanders of Vermont. So Senator Sanders, Chairman Sanders, Senator Manchin says he can't get there. This is a no. He's tried everything. What's your reaction?
Well, I think he's going to have a lot of explaining to do to the people of West Virginia, to tell them why he doesn't have the guts to take on the drug companies and lower the cost of prescription drugs, why he is not prepared to expand home health care. West Virginia is one of the poorest states in this country. You got elderly people and disabled people who would like to stay at home were forced into nursing homes. He's going to have to tell the people of West Virginia why he doesn't want to expand Medicare to cover dental, hearing, and eyeglasses. I've been to West Virginia a number of times, and it's a great state, beautiful people, but it is a state that is struggling. And he's going to have to tell the people of West Virginia why he's rejecting what the scientists of the world are telling us, that we have to act boldly and transform our energy system to protect future generations from the devastation of climate change. You know, what's going on now, Jake, in Washington is the big money interests are pouring hundreds and hundreds of millions of dollars to make sure that we continue to pay the highest prices in the world for prescription drugs, that the rich do not start paying their fair share of taxes. And I would have hoped that we could have had at least 50 Democrats on board who have the guts to stand up for working families and take on the lobbyists and the powerful special interests. We have no Republican support. Not one Republican in the United States Senate or the House, for that matter, is prepared to stand up to the drug companies or the insurance companies or the wealthy. I would hope we would have had 50 Democrats. But if that is the case, then I hope that we will bring a strong bill to the floor of the Senate as soon as we can and let Mr. Manchin explain to the people of West Virginia why he doesn't have the guts to stand up to powerful special interests.
Oh, so you want to vote on it no matter what, even if...
Absolutely. Absolutely. The American people have got to understand what is at stake. For decades now, what Congress has been doing, giving tax breaks to the rich, not standing up to the drug companies, so that we end up paying the highest prices in the world for prescription drugs, ignoring climate change. The President of the United States and almost every Democrat is trying finally to address these issues.
Did you know this was coming?
Mr. Manchin doesn't want to support us. Well, look, we've been dealing with Mr. Manchin for month after month after month. But if he doesn't have the courage to do the right thing for the working families of West Virginia and America, let him vote no in front of the whole world.
So how do you tell somebody out there watching, wondering, how come you couldn't get Joe Manchin on board?
Well, as I've indicated, we're taking on not just Joe Manchin, we're taking on, do you know how much money the pharmaceutical industry has spent in the last year on lobbying alone? Over $300 million, plus campaign contributions, plus all kinds of advertising. Fossil fuel industry is spending a fortune. Let's not kid ourselves. We have a corrupt political system dominated by big money interests. And finally, some of us are saying, let's stand up for working families. Average worker has not seen a pay raise in inflation accounted for dollars in 45 years, while the rich are becoming phenomenally richer. Corporate profits are at an all-time high. And what some of us are saying, maybe, we'll stand up for working families for a change. But apparently we don't have the 50 votes that we need. And I think we take that message right into the 2022 campaigns. Which party, with the exception maybe of one or two people, which party is prepared to do the right things for the elderly, for the children? And by the way, we talk about kids. I want everybody out there to know, if Mr. Manchin votes no, those $300 tax credits that have gone a long way to reducing childhood poverty in America, they're gone. That's over. We cut childhood poverty by over 40%, an extraordinary accomplishment. Manchin doesn't want to do that. Tell that to the struggling families of West Virginia and America.
So you're suggesting he doesn't have the guts to stand up for...
And I don't have that entire interview, but I think you see Bernie Sanders did a good job there going after Joe Manchin. And I was reading the live comments along the way. I saw, for example, this comment from, is it Isovimi Garga? Is that how you pronounce that? Isovimi Garga, if that's how you pronounce that. Sorry if I got that wrong, but West Virginia, they really need the dental. I mean, that might be unkind, but the thing is, I pointed out many times that one of Bernie Sanders' one of the things he does really well that of all people also Donald Trump did really well is there are certain things he repeats over and over again so that they get drilled in there. And I've been talking about how he's been promoting this legislation with eyesight, hearing and dental, eyesight, hearing and dental. And that's because, old people vote. Old people are the ones who don't, even though they have Medicare, they don't have coverage for eyesight, hearing and dental. That it's actually some of the more expensive. I don't know why it is that for some reason healthcare doesn't include your eyes, your ears, and your teeth or whatever. Well, it does in you have a different doctor for your eyes and your teeth, definitely. Ears, it's the hearing aids that are so expensive that more and more people are needing. So I wanted to point out that comment. I appreciated that Super Chat contribution from Tom Trask. That always peps me up. I think, as I was saying last week, that people are supporting, even putting their money out there to support the time and effort I put into my videos. So thank you for that. And the other thing that I think I said before I showed the video, that I believe that clip bears out what I was saying when I pre-criticized the clip, or when I gave you a pre-analyzed the clip, I guess, that Bernie Sanders, when he was saying, why couldn't you get Joe Manchin's vote? Well, because of the corrupt system and the fossil fuel and pharmacy industries, and, well, especially the fossil fuel industry has, Joe Manchin himself has quite a lot of personal family wealth in fossil fuels, and he also, I talked in previous months about how there was this leaked memo that he was in constant communication with fossil fuel lobbyists. And I think Bernie Sanders was kind of, without saying Joe Manchin is corrupt, he was saying that kind of clearly in the end of that last clip. And Bret Baier actually did kind of ask him about that, but did not do a really good job of following up with the extent of his family fortune, or the extent of his contacts with lobbyists and contributions from lobbyists in the fossil fuel industry. Never asked him about that. And the thing is, when Joe Manchin starts responding to the question from Bret Baier, and I'm doing some pre-criticism of the clip here, I guess, but notice what he does is he very quickly transitions into the talking points of the fossil fuel industry. If you go to the website of the fossil fuel industry lobbyists, whatever, I can't even remember what their consortium's called, but what Joe Manchin says is what you're going to hear. But what Joe Manchin says is what you would see on their website, is what I mean to say. And I will talk about that a little more with you after you watch. This is just another 90 seconds of Joe Manchin from later in the interview that I already showed you an extended clip from, but this is just talking about the charge from Bernie Sanders, although Bernie Sanders made the charge after the interview. But anyway, you get the idea. Here it is, and I'll talk about it with you a little more after we watch together over here.
There's a lot of criticism that says that you're doing this about environment and climate change. Your critics, your biggest critics, say West Virginia's heavy reliance on coal industry, and that you personally profit from investments in a family coal brokerage that you founded.
Sure.
What's your response to that?
No, I've heard all of those things, and I understand where they're coming from, and basically they're trying to get an agenda they wish to have. The main thing that we need is dependability, reliability. If not, you'll have what happened in Texas and happens in California. And no one's talking about defense of our country either. We just had a committee hearing on, do we have the energy that we need to defend our country in time if we would have a conflict or a war? All these things. And the reliability and the affordability. I have put, as chairman of the Energy and Natural Resources Committee in the last 2 years, working in a bipartisan bill, billions of dollars in clean energy technology. We're doing everything humanly possible. We've done more than it's ever been done in the past, and we're continuing to do that. But you can't let technology be behind basically the needs. If technology is not there, we've got to make sure that we're able still to rely on the United States of America. We have been energy basically independent for the first time in many, many years, 67 years or more. And we should not have to depend on other parts of the world to give us the energy or be able to hold us hostage for the energy or the foreign supply chains that we need for the products we use every day.
All right, Senator.
That's
Build
all
Back
I'm trying to
Better
do.
So yeah, that am I right in my analysis there that Bret Baier asked, critics say you are enthralled to the fossil fuel industry, and Joe Manchin's response is, no, I'm not. Now let me read these talking points that come right from the fossil fuel industry's website. And Bret Baier didn't really follow up on that or talk about any of the things I pre-criticized the clip by saying. But anyway, that is the last of the newsmaker clips on the breaking news topic that, is Senator Joe Manchin, the Grinch that stole Joe Biden's agenda. Those were all the clips I took from yesterday's shows on that topic. The news summaries, none of them were on that topic because it was breaking news from Fox News Sunday. I actually, before that happened, I thought that I might title this week's live stream COVID Strikes Back, Omicron Rising, something like that, some sort of like epic movie parody title. And the sad thing is, I think I'm going to have another month and a half when I can just use that title any week. Maybe next week. We'll see which week it's going to be. But COVID Strikes Back, Omicron Rising, 4 to 6 weeks it looks like. And I'm going to show you all 5 of the news summaries here, which are pretty much all on that topic. Some of them throw in a few other things. And I'm actually going to start with CBS News Face the Nation. I'm showing you from longest to shortest. And they have the longest, best coverage. And I'm going to do something I don't normally do because I'm not taking any newsmaker clips from CBS News Face the Nation because they're one of the 2 that didn't cover my main topic. And the COVID experts they had on didn't say anything that remarkable. They had this chief of staff to the President Ghani of Afghanistan who fled the country. And but the thing is, if you want to watch CBS News Face the Nation, the link under sources in my video description goes to their YouTube channel, the Face the Nation YouTube channel, where the whole thing is like split up into clips, including extended interviews that aren't even on the regular program. But anyway, so I'm not taking any newsmaker clips, but I'm going to show both Margaret Brennan doing the introduction, and then Mark Strassmann talking about COVID and Omicron in the United States. And I guess Elizabeth Palmer, who usually reports from London, is off, or I don't know, maybe they changed assignments. I don't know, but they have Imtiaz Tyab, I think, if I'm pronouncing that right, from London, talking about Omicron in the UK, which, as they point out here, is often like a couple weeks ahead of what's happening in the United States. And I'm showing this because I think it's something you don't get on any of the other 5 or any of the other 4 corporate outlets. CBS Face the Nation has had the most extensive COVID coverage since like January 2020. And as I've said many times, when they started covering it, I said they're either overhyping the issue or they're the only one of the big 5 covering the biggest story of the year. And guess what? It turned out to be number 2. It was the biggest story of last year and this year, really. And so, I mean, you can't really fault them for covering it, although I don't know why they didn't. Might just be when they taped that they didn't cover Joe Manchin. But anyway, they do give this also, they usually have international coverage that you don't get on the other 4. And that's why I'm going to show you this almost 6-minute. It's like it's Mark Strassmann and then the person from London. And I think it supports what I was saying about how COVID Strikes Back, Omicron Rising is a title I will be able to use any week for the next month or 2 in the United States, unfortunately, as I will talk about with you a little more after we watch that bad news together from CBS Face the Nation yesterday over here.
Good morning and welcome to Face the Nation. With less than a week to go until Christmas, it's tough to be effusive with holiday cheer. The COVID tidal wave builds and is likely to worsen due to holiday gatherings. Officials around the world are struggling to learn more about the Omicron variant. What they do know is that your best protection is to get vaccinated and boosted. Mark Strassmann begins our coverage.
Omicron's alarm bells ring out across America. In California,
when I look around the corner ahead, what I see is a deluge of Omicron.
Ohio.
People are gathering together. Our medical personnel have just been slammed. All of this constitutes this perfect storm.
And especially New York.
I believe it's going to get even stronger and more virulent, and we are in for a rough ride this winter season.
New Yorkers stampede for testing. COVID cases nearly doubled in 1 week. Twice this week, the state set the highest single-day count of new cases since the pandemic's early months.
I feel like everyone has COVID, and I'm just trying to be safe, you know. This week's been crazy.
2 years into the virus, America's seeing a run on testing once again. We're left to make our own COVID calculus, evaluating personal risk and exposure moment to moment. America's bruising from a 1-2 punch, Delta and Omicron, the newest variant about to become dominant. Its severity unclear, its contagiousness overt. Cases more than double every few days. Experts warn about a potential tsunami of sickness.
For unvaccinated, we are looking at a winter of severe illness and death for unvaccinated. For themselves, their families, and the hospitals they'll soon overwhelm.
Another milestone in mourning. Bells tolled Thursday for 800,000 Americans dead from the virus. That's almost the population of San Francisco. Roughly 1,200 Americans still die daily from the virus.
Today was pretty hard because it's my third one this week.
One of many American hospitals buckling under caseloads. The NFL is reeling from a blindside blitz of outbreaks. 3 of this weekend's games postponed for a couple of days. The NBA, the NHL, and the NCAA are also playing defense to keep COVID from spreading. Multiply that risk of community spread on college campuses. On many, COVID has exploded again, just in time for the holidays, as infected students head home for winter break. With Christmas next weekend, more than 100 million of us will travel at least 50 miles over the next few days. So many people are sick from COVID. Everyone is sick of COVID. And home for the holidays has an irresistible appeal, but an undeniable risk. Margaret?
Our Mark Strassmann in Atlanta. U.S. health officials are closely watching Omicron cases in the United Kingdom for signs as to what could be headed here. CBS News foreign correspondent Imtiaz Tyab reports from London.
Margaret, good morning. Well, London really now is the epicenter of Omicron infections right across the UK, with over half from the new variant, all of which is wreaking havoc nearly everywhere.
Britain is convulsing under the strain caused by Omicron. In central London, violence broke out between police and anti-vaxxers outside Parliament, where demonstrators were demanding an end to vaccine mandates and other COVID measures. The unrest comes as chilling new government figures show England has recorded the highest number of children admitted to hospital with COVID since the start of the pandemic. 65 under-18s were hospitalized with COVID on December the 12th, with more than half just 5 years old and under.
They're a lot younger than the patients that we had in the first and second surge.
As record numbers of new infections threaten to strain the UK's already struggling national health system, Britain's booster shot program has been turbocharged. Every minute, 100 people are being boosted in London alone.
So the waiting time is 2.5 to 3 hours.
Despite the long lines in places, few here were complaining.
Is that why you're getting your booster?
Yeah, definitely. Peace of mind, really, if anything else.
Across Europe, Omicron concerns have led to a wave of new COVID restrictions, including in the Netherlands, where holiday shoppers were given just a few hours' notice the country was going into a full national lockdown until at least mid-January. Caretaker Prime Minister Mark Rutte said the country will have, quote, another Christmas that is completely different from what we would like, calling it very bad news. But there is a glimmer of hope. The first at-home treatment for COVID has been given to patients in the UK as part of a major Oxford University study. Molnupiravir will be tested on 10,000 people at risk of serious illness, a move and a medication being described as a game changer.
Now, officially, Britain is still open for business, but it's beginning to look a lot like Christmas plans are once again in disarray as people right up and down the country are canceling plans because of Omicron. Margaret.
Imtiaz, thank you. We go now to the director of the National Institutes of Health, Dr. Francis Collins. Good morning, and before we...
So yeah, that was Dr. Francis Collins. That was his last day as the director of the National Institutes of Health, being like Dr. Anthony Fauci's boss. He was on Face the Nation. He was also over on Fox News Sunday, and he, in both places, he said we're in for like a long, dark winter. Things are not, 4 to 6 weeks, like I was saying. At least things are going to get worse and worse, and the thing is, as you saw from those reports, and both from what Mark Strassmann reported here in the United States that's going on, and what we can see from, what might be the future of what's going to happen in the United States going on in the UK, is we already were looking at a Delta wave. I've been talking about that for months as it starts. It was happening in the South. Where people go inside in the summer because it's too hot, and then it's moving to the places where people go inside in the winter because it's too cold, like New Hampshire and Colorado, and it's just with the Delta variant, and now Omicron is spreading a lot faster, and exactly how virulent, how serious the disease is still not quite known, because it depends on the population and what type of natural immunity they have, what type of vaccinated immunity they have, and what's going on in South Africa, and what types of experience that population has, both with natural immunity and vaccinated immunity, might not be the same as what's happening in the UK or what's going to happen in the United States. So there are a lot of unknowns, but things were already bad, and it looks like they're going to get worse than even predicted because of this new variant. That the thing is, there's this one, I've seen this one doctor on MSNBC, I think he, can't remember his name, from Brown University, who pointed out that if the Omicron variant gets a lot of people sick but not, hospitalized or dead, because it has a lot of breakthrough infections, that's also going to impact healthcare workers. They're going to have, even if they're saying even with the vaccine and the booster, that's only like 75% effective, which means 25% of people are going to get some kind of infection in terms of breakthrough infections. And anyway, things are looking bad, and I think you saw a lot of the facts that make that true in that last news summary. They're also in the NBC News Meet the Press news summary I'm about to show you, which also, it doesn't have the whole international angle. It has a little more focus on the politics. It talks about vaccine mandates, and also President Biden tomorrow is making a big speech on the, COVID strikes back, Omicron rises. And anyway, I'll talk about that a little more with you after we watch Chuck Todd do his live introduction, and then his extended package of pre-recorded video on these topics over here.
Good Sunday morning. Well, it's beginning to look a lot like a COVID Christmas and beyond.
Oh, and one thing I forgot to say, that there's some weird audio issues at the end of this. I think they forgot to include Chuck Todd's narration right all the way at the end, but I just wanted to point it out because this is not my error. It's NBC News Meet the Press's error. So anyway, keep an eye out or an ear out for that at the end of this clip, which I will talk about with you a little more after we watch together over here.
Good Sunday morning. Well, it's beginning to look a lot like a COVID Christmas and beyond. For millions of Americans, this winter could resemble a rerun of the awful previous COVID surges as the Omicron variant speeds its way across the country. NFL games are being rescheduled, back-to-work plans are being scrapped, and some schools, including Harvard, are even returning to remote learning. Deaths, still almost entirely from Delta so far, are also now occurring at a faster rate than at any other time other than last winter's surge. In fact, the 7-day case average is now nearly 130,000. That represents a nearly 35% increase over the case average since Thanksgiving. Omicron appears to be far more contagious than Delta, meaning a spike in cases could once again overwhelm hospitals that are already a bit overwhelmed in some parts of this country. At the same time, months after President Biden all but declared independence from COVID, Americans are simply fatigued with being fatigued. His administration has felt deflated, begging the unvaccinated to get shots. They're not even doing daily briefings. Mr. Biden will address the country on Tuesday in response to this latest coronavirus crisis. We said it a year ago. As COVID goes, so goes Mr. Biden's presidency. And though the president is not responsible for this latest wave, he may well wind up paying the political price for it.
For unvaccinated, we are looking at a winter of severe illness and death.
With hospitals already at their breaking point, the rise of Omicron is fueling worries about another COVID winter.
Growing concerns over the spread of the Omicron variant.
Doctors say the Omicron could soon be our dominant variant.
80% of COVID cases tested are now the Omicron variant.
The surge forcing a wave of cancellations. The NFL postponing games after a cluster of outbreaks. The Rockettes canceling the rest of their season. And there are growing concerns about this week's holiday travel.
The flights are full, the lobby is full, all the planes are full.
Where does that leave us heading into the holidays?
Well, not in a good place.
The CDC predicts COVID cases could spike this week by 55%, up to 1.3 million infections by Christmas Day. During the first week of January, deaths could rise to up to 15,600 over 7 days.
For the unvaccinated, you're looking at a winter of severe illness and death. For yourselves, your families, and the hospitals you may soon overwhelm.
Experts say those who have had booster shots are largely protected from severe illness. But hospitalizations are up 20% over the past 2 weeks. Many hospitals nearing capacity.
Last Friday, I had a doctor that just sobbed on the phone with me and said to me, "Debbie, people are dying, not because of COVID, because we can no longer take patients."
In a new study, 40% of nurses and nearly 1 in 4 doctors said they are moderately, likely, or definitely planning to quit the profession within 2 years.
We're tired, the hospitals are stretched, resilience is low. Please get vaccinated.
Just 61% of Americans are fully vaccinated, 2 doses, trailing more than 50 other countries. Many Republicans have declined to push back against vaccine skeptics in their own party, instead ignoring or catering to a flood of misinformation.
Vitamin D, zinc, keep yourself healthy. Vitamin C, by the way, standard gargle, mouthwash has been proven to kill the coronavirus. Even if you get it, you may reduce viral replication. There's all why not try all these things?
And President Biden's vaccination or testing requirements are under assault by Republicans.
Democratic politicians are authoritarians.
You can't just have these bureaucracies that are running amok.
They really have gone too far.
On Friday, a federal appeals court reinstated the president's vaccine or testing mandate for large businesses, setting up a likely showdown at the Supreme Court. But believing that the White House has lost the political fight, even some Democrats are souring on vaccine requirements.
I truly believe that there should be a vaccine mandate for the federal government. Private sector is a whole different, which I do not support.
You can't, at the end of the day, force people to do something they don't want to do.
And a reminder, despite its recent court victory, the Biden administration plans to delay the implementation of the COVID vaccine mandates by a month. Joining me now is the director of the National Institute of Allergy and Infectious Diseases. It's Dr. Anthony Fauci. Dr. Fauci, welcome.
I'm actually going to show you a clip of Chuck Todd's interview with Anthony Fauci, which I will argue he is actually asking Dr. Fauci for personal medical advice. And he almost kind of admits it in the interview, and then I'm going to show you a follow-up clip that supports my thesis there. But the other thing, one thing I thought was important that they showed in the CBS News Face the Nation news summary is something I talked about last week when they were talking about was it 100 or so people who died in those tornadoes, which of course is, a tragedy or is a sad event for all those families and for those states and even for our nation. But it got a lot of focus a lot more focus on the news programs last week than the 1,200 Americans who died of COVID that same day. That's been like you saw that in the CBS News Face the Nation news summary. I forgot to point that out, but they at least point out that like right now already, before things get worse for the next 4 to 6 weeks, it's about 1,200 people dying a day in the United States. The NBC News Meet the Press news summary, they did show, and I saw some live comments from the live viewers about Biden overpromising, like July 4th was going to be like, when he was running, he was going to like defeat COVID. They've been talking about this incessantly on Fox News, but people say NBC is part of the liberal media, but I think they showed that Biden overpromised on ending COVID because COVID is tricksy. It's tricksy apparently, and you can't predict everything that's going to happen. Although variants, those were things that people have been talking about, and if you've been watching my live streams, I talked about that, especially with low vaccination rates in a lot of countries like South Africa. But the one thing also that I thought was weird in the NBC News Meet the Press news summary, they talked about how maybe the deaths from COVID in the United States might get to the point where it's 15,600 over 7 days. Why would they? That's like a weird way to. I did the math on that. That's like 2,228 people per day, which is like 1,000 more per day than are dying right now. Although I don't think they said in the NBC News Meet the Press news summary that like 1,200 people per day are dying right now in the United States. So that was kind of weird also. And finally, I did think that the Meet the Press news summary, the one thing it did better maybe than Face the Nation is the whole political aspect and the thing with the Republicans, although I think they gave like too much airtime to Ron Johnson's misinformation. That was, I don't know. Sometimes when you give that much airtime to the misinformation, people like concentrate on like, oh, mouthwash cures COVID, and that's what they'll get out of that whole segment rather than, well, I don't know. Mouthwash does not cure COVID. Excuse me. I probably shouldn't try to lift up that particular piece of misinformation. Anyway, this next news summary is from Fox News Sunday. It's has a lot of the same. It's about a lot of the same stuff you just saw from NBC, especially because it has a lot of the politics in it. It talks about COVID and Omicron and the vaccine mandate, which you saw covered on NBC, not so much on CBS. I can't even remember if they covered it on CBS, and that Biden's giving a speech tomorrow. I don't know if there's so much spin in this that, I mean, I'm almost, when I watched this, I was thinking, did they try to like be especially straight news the first day after Chris Wallace left? I don't know. You can tell me what you think. Is this like less spin than usual from Fox News? It's a Bret Baier introducing, and then Mark Meredith as their reporter covering Biden over here.
And hello again from Fox News in Washington. The country is facing the swift spread of Omicron now in 44 states, just as Americans prepared to celebrate the holiday season. Hospitalizations are on the rise, and daily confirmed cases rising to more than an average of 127,000 cases. While a federal appeals court has reinstated the president's vaccine and test mandate for businesses that employ more than 100 people, and they could all go all the way to the U.S. Supreme Court. In a moment, we'll ask West Virginia Senator Joe Manchin about this development and his ongoing talks with the White House on the Biden agenda. But first, let's turn to Mark Meredith, traveling with the president in Wilmington, Delaware, with details on what the president plans to tell Americans in an address Tuesday about new steps to fight COVID. Mark?
Brett, the White House says the president's going to be outlining how the federal government can help communities that are dealing with a rapid rise in COVID cases. He's also expected to double down on his message to unvaccinated Americans that now's the time to get their shot.
For unvaccinated, we are looking at a winter of severe illness and death.
President Biden, along with health experts, are warning the pandemic is far from over.
So our message to every American is clear. There is action you can take to protect yourself and your family.
While 61% of the U.S. population is fully vaccinated, the virus continues to disrupt daily life. In New York, the Radio City Rockettes have canceled remaining performances. A handful of professional football, basketball, and hockey games have been postponed, and multiple schools are moving classes back online before winter break. On Friday, a federal appeals court ruled the president's vaccine or test mandate for large businesses can go into effect. The White House celebrating the news, writing, "It's critical we move forward with vaccination requirements." Critics of the mandate plan to take the case to the Supreme Court. Meantime, the White House is scrambling to find a path forward for the president's social and climate agenda. Senate Democrats remain deadlocked over the Build Back Better proposal, with moderates warning the country cannot afford to spend trillions more. The White House says it's going to wait until after the holiday break to re-engage with Congress on a few things, including spending as well as efforts to address voting rights. But with midterm elections looming, Brett, time is running out for Democrats to deliver on some of their key campaign promises. Brett.
Mark Meredith reporting from Wilmington. Mark, thank you. Joining us now, Democratic Senator Joe Manchin.
Ooh, and actually Bret Baier also asked Joe Manchin about voting rights, and I couldn't quite understand exactly what it sounded like. Maybe he was willing to change the rules of the filibuster, like make it like a speaking filibuster, but I don't know. Bret Baier didn't cross-examine him well on that, and it wasn't very clear as to exactly how he might be willing to change the filibuster to get voting rights through. But you saw the mention of voting rights there, which that might be the pivot. Maybe Democrats and the Biden administration will try to get some sort of voting rights legislation through now that Joe Manchin has kind of killed Build Back Better. I'm not sure. Or it sounds like maybe the child tax credit might come back in some form with means testing and getting it paid for 10 years and whatever. But anyway, I'm now going off on a tangent there. But I think actually, having watched it the third time, I usually watch these clips 3 times. Once when I watch the shows, once when I capture the clip, and then once I watch it with you all during the live stream. And I really do think that they were trying to be especially not straight news this week. I noticed Bret Baier even went farther than I. At this point, I often will just refer to vaccine mandates, even though it's not even a vaccine mandate. It's a vaccine and testing mandate, and I made that like a point of bias when it was first announced, but you get tired of saying vaccine and testing mandate. But it's true, the federal vaccine mandate on businesses with over 100 employees actually requires the employees to be vaccinated or weekly tested. So it's not even a vaccine mandate. And like Bret Baier right at the beginning of the show made that clear. So he's I don't know, maybe they're at least trying to keep up appearances for the first show after Chris Wallace left. You can let me know what you think about that. But like I said, it was pretty much the same information from Meet the Press, and I don't even think the spin was that different, but you can let me know what you think. The next news summaries, there are 2 more news summaries, ABC and then CNN. They're both between, ABC's a little bit longer, covering the same stuff. Jonathan Karl. I think there's some COVID graphs here, but I'll talk about ABC's news summary a little more after we watch together over here.
And welcome to This Week. As Christmas approaches, COVID-19 again threatens to upend American life. Driving the spread, Omicron. At least 43 states now have confirmed cases of the latest and by far most contagious variant yet. On Saturday alone, New York State reported nearly 22,000 new COVID cases, breaking a single-day record set just the day before. Nationwide, new cases are up 90% since late October. Hospitals are now back at the brink. This week, New York, Ohio, New Hampshire, and Maine all activated their National Guards to help understaffed healthcare facilities. And as we approach another year of the pandemic and mark a full year since vaccines began rolling out, the United States is averaging nearly 1,200 deaths every day. The overall death toll this week surpassing 800,000, the highest of any country in the world. All of this is prompting another wave of anxiety, uncertainty, and fresh cancellations. Some schools and universities are going remote, professional sports leagues postponing games, Broadway shows, and the famed Rockettes going dark. In some ways, it's beginning to feel like March of 2020 all over again. But there are hopeful signs, too. The vaccines appear effective against Omicron, and a clinical trial this week showed a new COVID treatment pill is nearly 90% effective at preventing hospitalizations and deaths. Big questions remain as we head into the new year. How dangerous is Omicron? Can families gather safely for the holidays? And when does all of this end? And so we begin this morning with President Biden's chief medical advisor, Dr. Anthony Fauci. Dr. Fauci.
So, yeah, that was a decent news summary, and it did have a lot of good graphs there. And like I was saying with the CBS News Face the Nation news summary, it pointed out we're already at 1,200 deaths a day. That's a lot of people dying. I mean, multiply if that, and we're over 800,000 people dead in the and that's just the United States, of course. I often have kind of U.S. centered coverage because I'm taking from the news shows that, like I said, all of them except for CBS News Face the Nation cover this almost exclusively as a United States problem, even though it isn't. And even CBS News this week talked mostly about the UK, although most weeks they have talk about other countries as well. But there's so many more people dying all around the world, of course, and I'm just reporting and giving credit to ABC for just talking about the number of people dead per day and overall here in the United States. But I guess that's the way we like our news in the United States, where, you know, the farther away from us people who are dying are, the less we want to hear about it. And, you know, like one person dying in town gets a lot more coverage than, you know, 1,000 people dying on the other side of the world. I don't know why that is, but that's just the way people are, and or the way news is. Or is it the way people are and so that's the way the news is? Or is it the way the news is and so that's what people see? I don't know. You can... Wow, I'm getting so deep today. But anyway, the last news summary I want to show you is the shortest, just a little over a minute. And this is kind of depressing because, you know, Jake Tapper has done this thing and now he co-hosts with Dana Bash and they both do it every week. What is the State of the Union? Well, I'll let Jake Tapper tell you over in this clip.
Hello, I'm Jake Tapper in Washington, where the state of our union is expecting to get COVID. Once again, Americans are waking up to news of postponements and cancellations, sports games, theatrical performances, holiday parties, schools, family plans. As COVID-19 cases, hospitalizations, and deaths are rising again throughout the country. Hospitalizations and deaths especially hitting the unvaccinated. New York City and Washington, D.C. have both reported 2 days of record high cases, and health experts are warning of a tough month ahead. Still, the world in 2021 is different than it was in March 2020. Officials say they are better prepared for the surge. They point to vaccines and boosters as the best way to control the virus and prevent serious illness. All true. And yet, this fourth wave is exposing real weaknesses in how the U.S. has dealt with the virus, especially when it comes to testing. On Tuesday, we're told President Biden will give a speech on the Omicron variant, not where he thought we would be a year ago when Biden predicted Christmas 2021 might feel close to normal.
I believe we'll be awfully close to that, if not there. It's not going to be quick, but I think by next Christmas we'll be close to normal.
Joining me now, the chief medical advisor to President Biden, Dr. Anthony Fauci. Dr. Fauci.
And I will have an Anthony Fauci clip coming up from Meet the Press that I promised, where I think Chuck Todd's asking for personal medical advice, but there you saw, again, just like on Meet the Press, where Chuck Todd's news summary held Biden accountable for overpromising on COVID. There, the liberal news media, Jake Tapper, CNN, State of the Union, holds Biden accountable for overpromising on COVID. I don't know if he needed to go so depressing as the State of the Union this week is expecting to get COVID. That I don't know. It's a little dark there, Jake, but I don't know. Is that the State of the Union this week? Maybe. But anyway, that's all of the news summaries, and I really only have a couple more newsmaker clips. First, there's the clip of Anthony Fauci's interview with Chuck Todd, I promised, where I think he's asking for personal medical advice, which I will back up with a clip of Chuck Todd later in the program. And then I forgot to mention I was going to do this, but for loyal viewers who have watched this far in the program, you should know at the very end I'm going to commit some legal analysis and talk about how Donald Trump may be guilty from the January 6th insurrection, so-called insurrection, or some people call it an insurrection, whatever. That insurrection is actually a crime, but that is not the crime that is easiest to charge. And I'm going to talk about, because I'm a lawyer and a former criminal defense attorney, and I can read statutes. Actually, if you go down in the sources, you'll see 18 USC, it's 18 USC 1512. Some people think it should be 1505, but 1512, and I'll explain, which has a 20-year sentence, why Donald Trump may be guilty of violating 18 USC 1512 sub C, which carries a sentence of up to 20 years in prison. That'll be the final newsmaker clip with Adam Kinzinger talking about something Liz Cheney's been saying. And they're the two Republicans on the January 6th Commission. So that'll be the final newsmaker clip before my bonus Dash and Sandy clip. Dash is continuing his miraculous recovery. But anyway, that's what, I don't know why I took this opportunity to preview what you're going to see before I finish the program. But anyway, I guess because I just finished all the news summaries, which I think I criticized them enough and juxtaposed them so that you can tell me. I think CBS is the winner this week, but you can let me know what you think in the comment section. Now, I'm going to show you this clip where Chuck Todd runs various scenarios with Dr. Anthony Fauci, which by the end he kind of lets on. He's like, just asking for a friend who happens to be me, or, well, he doesn't say asking for a friend, but it becomes clear by the end of this that he's really asking about his own situation and trying to get Dr. Fauci's advice, I think, over in this clip.
The risk of severity.
Well, let's start. I want to go through a few of these scenarios because people are trying to figure out what should they do if something happens in their household. So you have a COVID positive breakthrough of a vaccinated person. How many times do they need to test negative before they should feel comfortable going back into society?
Well, you know, the general rule is if it's about 7 to 10 days following the onset of symptoms, they're going to be okay. You want to get tested to show that, that's fine. But it really is duration from the time you initially get symptoms. That's one of the things that I think people need to understand. You want to quarantine yourself in the sense of isolating yourself from the rest of the family so you don't spread it around. But that's the general rule of thumb.
All right, what about if you're vaccinated, you don't have COVID, but you've been exposed to COVID? What is your responsibility? What is your recommendation?
No, if you are vaccinated and you're exposed, you don't need to isolate yourself. Some people, and I think it would be prudent to wind up getting tested. Testing now is so much more available, Chuck, than it was in the past, and we're going to be doing even better looking forward over the next few weeks to a month. So again, you don't need to isolate yourself or quarantine yourself for sure if you are vaccinated, but you might want to get a test a couple of days later to just make sure that you have not had a breakthrough infection if in fact you're vaccinated and hopefully boosted.
Well, you kind of answered my follow-up, which is, because look, we've seen this ourselves. Somebody tests negative, you know, there's a positive in the house, somebody tests negative, right, you know, a brother or sister tests negative, and then the next day they test positive. So how many days from exposure should you feel comfortable that a negative test is truly a negative test?
Yeah, you want to wait at least 3 and up to 5 days following it. So you might want to get a couple of tests, test one at 3 to 5 days and maybe one a little bit later. The tests that are now available, the point of care antigen tests, are not as sensitive as the PCR test, But if you do them sequentially, one or two or more, you're going to get a result that would be an accurate result.
What should we expect from President Biden on Tuesday?
And yeah, then he goes on there. But did you see he said this is something we've experienced, where he's, by the end of that, it seems like he's asking Dr. Fauci, like, the very scenarios or like what's happening in his own household. And to back up that hypothesis, here's at the beginning of one of the panel discussion, here's what Chuck Todd said later.
Welcome back. We're glad to see our panelists, although we're back in our remote locations. I'm in a remote location because I've come into close contact with someone who's tested positive in the last 48 hours in my household. Also with us, PBS.
Okay, so am I right? Am I right? If you put those two clips together and you listen very carefully, is Chuck Todd actually taking Dr. Anthony Fauci's time to ask 3 questions that are really for his own personal medical benefit? I don't know. I mean, I guess a lot of people could be in the same situation as Chuck Todd, so it's a public service. It's a public service. Well, I don't know. You can let me. I know a lot of people out there hate Chuck Todd, so I expect there to be a big pile on, but I think it's pretty clear from those 2 clips that he actually was asking Dr. Anthony Fauci for personal medical advice during the longest-running show in television history, Meet the Press. But anyway, I did promise that I have one more newsmaker clip, and after that I'm going to commit some legal analysis here about how Donald Trump and a lot of people may be co-conspirators in trying to obstruct an official proceeding. I think Rachel Maddow did a thing on this several days ago, and she was looking at 18 U.S.C. 1505, but the problem, which is about obstruction of an official proceeding, and what they're talking about on January 6th, the Congress was supposed to count the votes and certify the votes of the Electoral College under the Electoral Count Act, which is a whole problem in and of itself that I won't talk about today. The Electoral Count Act needs to be fixed, but under the Electoral Count Act, they have this official proceeding on January 6th. You all remember where they were supposed to count the votes, and there was this whole, it wasn't just on January 6th, there was this whole lead up with the coup PowerPoint and this whole idea they were going to obstruct the official proceeding, and they were going to march the people to the Capitol to express their outrage to stop the Congress from certifying the vote. Well, Liz Cheney has been using some specific language on that, and Adam Kinzinger was on a couple of the shows. Here he is talking to Jonathan Karl about the specifics of... here Jonathan Karl actually shows him a clip of Liz Cheney, and then I will talk about the particular statute involved a little more after we watch that final newsmaker clip together over here.
Right, it gives them a big platform, to be sure. I want to play something else that Liz Cheney said about the importance of Meadows testifying. Take a listen.
And Mr. Meadows' testimony will bear on another key question before this committee. Did Donald Trump, through action or inaction, corruptly seek to obstruct or impede Congress's official proceedings to count electoral votes?
Okay, so I know Congress doesn't have the power to prosecute. That's the Justice Department. But what Congresswoman Cheney just described there is a crime under the U.S. Criminal Code. It is a crime to obstruct the official proceedings of Congress. Is she there sending a message, and are you sending a message, that the Justice Department should be prosecuting not just those that broke into the building on January 6th, but should be prosecuting Donald Trump himself, or at least investigating that possibility?
I think investigating that possibility for sure. You know, Congress has, I think in this case, our committee is getting more information than law enforcement agencies and DOJ. because we've had the power and the ability to get that done. And so whatever information we get will be public record, and the DOJ should take a look, particularly if there's criminal charges to be filed. Because again, the big thing is, as bad as it was on January 6th, there's really nothing in place to stop another one from happening again. And if somebody broke the law, it is so essential that we send the message that you are not untouchable as president, you're not untouchable as a former president, so just go and do your job honorably, and I think that's the only way that self-governance survives into the future.
It was interesting to hear Senator McConnell this week.
Why is the January 6th committee getting more information than the Department of Justice, who's prosecuting people? That is a little disturbing. I don't know, maybe they're getting more contextual information, like about the coup plotting and stuff, and they're getting people to come in and cooperate who I guess might not testify if they were being prosecuted, or I don't know, but that was a little disturbing there. And then the statute that Liz Cheney, like I said, some people say it's 18 U.S.C. 1505, but which is obstruction of an official proceeding, but that only carries a 5-year sentence, and there's some question as to whether this session of Congress to certify the votes would qualify as an official proceeding under 18 U.S.C. 1505. But in some of the January 6 prosecutions, people who stormed the Capitol on January 6, some people have already been prosecuted under 18 U.S.C. 1512 subsection C, who says whoever corruptly, C2, whoever corruptly otherwise obstructs, influences, or impedes any official proceeding or attempts to do so shall be fined under this title or imprisoned not more than 20 years or both. And so, yeah, and I put a link down in the video description to this entire statute. And there is a judge who's already said that this statute applies to trying to obstruct the proceedings of Congress on January 6th to certify the votes. And like I said, you can see it has a 20-year penalty. So 18 U.S.C. 1512 sub C sub 2. Now, the one thing Liz Cheney said is through action or inaction. And I don't know, inaction, I think that makes it a harder prosecution, like, because Trump did nothing. He, didn't send in the National Guard immediately or whatever. That, I don't know. But if there's a conspiracy to stop Congress from certifying the vote, that's a felony under 18 U.S.C. 1512 sub C sub 2, as I just showed you. So anyway, that's the legal analysis I wanted to give you, and that's a backstory that is a story that I've been covering somewhat this year, and hopefully it's actually going to be a bigger story next year. As one of the other things they talked about, Adam Kinzinger and some of the panelists was how the January 6th committee is going to have more public hearings and try to get some of this information more dramatically to get through the clutter, the noise of the media, and have people focus on it maybe more in 2022. But I don't know. I think the Democrats would have done better to be able to pass the Build Back Better bill this year in terms of their electoral prospects in 2022. But anyway, you can let me know what you think about all that. You can let me know what you think about all the clips I picked out. That is the end of the program, other than the bonus Dash and Sandy or Dandy clip for the Dash and Sandy fans out there. Dash, my cat, who a few weeks ago looked like he was about to die, didn't eat for 2 weeks, but has been making a miraculous recovery for the last few weeks. And then Sandy, my dog, who, he does, as I see some commenters point out, Sandy is female, Dash is male, but Sandy, the dog, did suffer from old dog vestibular disease a few months back, and she still kind of tilts her head kind of funny, and I think you'll see that in this clip. Often I focus on when it's feeding time for Sandy, and I show Dash the cat hanging around. Well, this time I did the opposite. Dash, because he wasn't eating for so long, in addition to the dry food, we now have special wet food that is for cats with kidney disease, because even though Dash is doing better, he still has kidney disease, pancreas disease, and heart disease, and he's 16 and a half years old, and I wouldn't be surprised if he's only going to be around for several more months, or who knows. But anyway, he seems to be getting better, even though he's very thin. And anyway, this, you'll see I start this Dash and Sandy clip focused in on the special kidney function wet cat food that we buy for Dash. And there's a little bit of Sandy at the end, and it takes a little longer because I have to prop up the camera so that I can use both hands to open the can of cat food, which I think I've over-introduced the Dash and Sandy clip. But here it is for the end of the show today over here. So there it is. Thanks G Wolf and Schmoab for those last minute super chat contributions. I appreciate that, supporting the show that way. There are also links down in the video description to support the show financially. And that was wasn't that like an artsy beginning? I had the cat food can in the foreground. You could see Dash in the background there. That was, I deserve credit for that setup of that clip there, I think. Anyway, that was the show. I'll be back next Monday, and I'm not going to end the Monday media mix-ups at the end of the year like I thought I might, but I don't know exactly how long they're going to keep going. I'm not making any promises, but next week isn't going to be the last show. That's the one promise I'll make. And so I guess until next week, or I have some other reason to upload a video, I will be seeing all of you around the internet.